The President, please be seated. The trial chamber is back in session, and the floor is now given to the lead co-lawyer for civil parties so that you can put questions to the civil parties here. You may now proceed.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, merci.
Yes, Mr. President. Thank you. I have heard that we must complete before 4 p.m. We started rather belatedly this afternoon. I crave the court's indulgence to grant us a bit more time than the time allotted to us, since we started rather late. I will try to proceed rapidly. Good afternoon again, Madam. I would like us to revisit some of the questions that were put to you on the first part after Phnom Penh. I would also like to talk about your departure from Phnom Penh. Please tell us how many brothers and sisters you had at the time of your departure from Phnom Penh.
Response. I have 3 younger brothers. I have 2 younger brothers, 2 sisters. When it was in 1975, I have another younger brother.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. You made mention of persons who came to your home and who were dressed in black clothing. Were they soldiers?
Response. Yes. Those who told us to leave Phnom Penh, they were in black uniform with a red scarf around their necks. I know they were the Khmer Rouge soldier, but I do not know which unit were they from.
Ce n'est pas nécessaire que vous nous précisiez ce...
It is not necessary for you to specify that. Please tell us, how old were they? Were they rather young or rather old?
Response. Some of them were rather old, some of them rather young, but I cannot tell you the exact age of those people.
Lorsqu'on vous a demandé de quitter votre maison,
When you were told to leave your home, what were you authorized to take along with you?
Response. They told us to leave and that we do not need to take more property with, because you were required to leave only for 3 days to avoid the bombardment from American.
lorsque votre père a refusé de partir,
When your father refused to leave, did the Khmer Rouge soldiers threaten your father?
Response. When my father refused to leave and he asked those comrades to delay his journey, and they told him that you have to leave because the upper Angkar need you to leave. if you decide not to do so, they will enforce a measure against you, and we have no choice. As we receive a severe threat, we had to prepare and pack our things and leave.
Est-ce qu'ils vous ont dit quelles mesures ils allaient prendre?
Did they tell you what measures they were going to take against you?
Response. The Khmer soldier told us that if you decide not to leave, you will be shot to death. We were accused of being enemies, for being loyal soldier or the enemy, and we had to leave. We wished to go back to our home village, but we could not do that. So if you want to proceed one direction, they detour us to go in a different direction.
Et vos voisins, les gens de votre rue, les gens de votre quartier?
And your neighbors, those who are on the same street with you or in your neighborhood, did they live in the same manner as yourself?
Response. My uncles and auntie were also evacuated, and they were evacuated to the vicinity of my area. But later we were separated. We get lost. We do not know where they were.
Et les gens de votre rue, madame, et de votre quartier?
How about the others who were not members of your family, who lived on your street and in your neighborhood? Did they have to leave as well?
Response. Yes. When the Khmerus arrived at any place or location, those place or location was evacuated, and the people in the town were all evacuated. So my family was the one who left behind the other.
Madame, est-ce que vous aviez la possibilité?
Madam, did you have the means to drink water during your journey from Phnom Penh to wherever you had to go?
Response. During that evacuation, we did not have water to drink. When I was in Vihirkun Pagoda, we had to drink water from the pond. But there was a little water. We have to use it, very limited water.
Vous avez parlé tout à l'heure des...
A while ago, you made mention of the sick, and you answered a question put to you by my learned colleague, and you said that no care was provided for the sick when you left Phnom Penh. Did they take care of the elderly?
Response. The sick and the elderly people were not treated by any Khmerus at all during the April 1975. So they had to live on their own. Anyone who can live, it's okay for them to live. If you could not, you have to enjoy the faith as you were.
Enceinte, pardon.
How about women who are pregnant?
Response: I do not know. I did not pay any attention to this matter because there were too many people. I could not identify a pregnant woman, so I was not interested in notice that.
Que se passait-il quand on ne pouvait pas aider les gens qui étaient fatigués?
What happened if you could not help the elderly, the sick, people who are tired? What did such people do?
Response: I don't know about that because my family requested other people to transport some of my luggage and stuff.
Est-ce que vous avez fait un premier voyage, Madame, de...
Madam, you left Phnom Penh in an initial trip. Can you list the places you went through until you got to Po village at a point in time?
Response: from the beginning, I passed Depot Market, and then I passed Stung Mien Chey, and then Old Back Arm Barrack, and then Wat Vihir Kuan Pagoda, and then I continue to Stung Kampong Tul, and then Wat Tek Tla, and I have to follow my fathers and to Chire Pano Mountain along National Road number 3, and I stay at Kairung Pagoda, and then we went to Sam Raung Yaung, and then we arrived Prailavir. The whole night, after the whole night, we arrived Stung district, and then we arrived Prek Ambal, and then we arrived Sampan Pagoda, and then Po Tiban Pagoda. It is called village number 5, Kothom district, Kandal province.
de temps a pris ce premier voyage?
How long was that after that first trip, madam?
Response: I do not remember the duration because when I arrived Vihir Kuan Pagoda, it was late in the evening. I stayed there for about 5 to 6 days, and then we continue to Tek Tla Pagoda and Stung Kampong Tul for about a week, and then we just try to continue our journey after we were forced to do so. We spent about 1 month to reach Po Tiban village number 5.
Je vous remercie. Combien de temps êtes-vous?
Thank you. For how long were you at that village, village number 5?
Response: I stayed in commune number 5 of Po Tiban village. It was about early 1976. It was from April, early May until early 1976, and we were then evacuated from Potiban to Posat province in Konding district in the cooperative named Kabal Chopuk.
Je voudrais, Madame, qu'on s'arrête un petit peu sur...
Madam, I would like us to dwell on village number 5, where you stayed from May to early, that is May 1976 to November 1976, that's 6 months. You stated that you stayed in that village and you were referred to as the 17th April people, and you were called bad people. How were those people called, those people in the village where you arrived?
Response. As we were the 17th April people, were the people evacuated from Phnom Penh, and the villagers at that village were called the base people. I just learned that the people there was called the base people in Sang Prek Tok.
Je vous remercie. Est-ce qu'il y avait...
Thank you. Were the 17 April people treated differently from the base people? And if yes, can you please give us some examples to illustrate that point?
Response. As far as I understand, the 17 April people were considered as enemies of the Khmer Rouge, and the base people were the people of the revolution, and the 17 April people were considered as enemies, feudalists, capitalists. I didn't understand then why we were treated in this manner. We were not capitalists or feudalists. We were also poor people in Cambodia. I didn't understand at that time.
Et est-ce que dans ce village, vous deviez travailler plus?
And did you have to travel more than the base people in that village? And did you receive less food than the base people?
Response. Yes. For the 17 April people, we have to look for food on our own. And we didn't have enough to eat. The base people have had enough to eat because they have rice store in the storage for themselves.
Lorsque vous êtes arrivé dans ce village,
And when you arrived at the village, did you remain with your parents, or were you separated from your family?
Response. At the beginning, we were living together.
est-ce qu'on vous a demandé de travailler dans une unité spéciale?
Were you told to work in a particular unit?
Response. Later, I was assigned to work in a female unit, and I was not allowed to come back home. It was a special unit. I don't understand what it was, but I was in a female unit at that time.
Je vous remercie. Est-ce que
Thank you. Did your younger siblings receive any education or schooling during the time that you lived in that village?
Response: No, there was no education. I saw people call the 18 April people or 17, but the 17 April people got no chance to go to school.
Est-ce que vous receviez une éducation?
Did you receive a political education?
Response: There were self-criticism meetings. I was criticized at all time for being lazy in doing the work, the labor work. Most of the time they criticized the 17 April people. I don't know why they try to cause a lot of trouble to the 17 April people. I don't understand about that.
Vous avez dit tout à l'heure
Earlier you said that your younger brother was born in 1975. Are you able to tell us where and when exactly your younger brother was born?
Response: No, I don't remember, but I know he was born late 1974. It was we were evacuated to Posat province.
Je vais juste vous demander une...
I would just seek one clarification, Madame. I've heard that he was born in 1974 following your fleeing from Persat, rather. So was he born in 1974 or in 1975?
Response: It was late 1975 because our second evacuation to Posat, my youngest brother was very young. He was born in late 1975.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. And during the time of his birth, was your mother cared for by a doctor?
Response: I saw a female medic, also a military, who was a village midwife. But I didn't see any medicine given to my mother. But I saw a village midwife to do the job, to help my mother with that.
Cette sage-femme soldat,
How old was the military midwife?
Response: She was about 20 years old or more. She looked rather young, but she was about in the late 20.
je vous remercie.
Thank you. In the same village where you resided for approximately 6 months, did you observe any arrests being made in village number 5?
Response: I don't know about that because I was living in a different location.
Monsieur le Président, avec votre
Mr. President, with your leave, I wish to read a passage from the written record of witness interview made before the co-investigating judges. It is document D246/4, French ERN is 00544455, in English 00379313, and in Khmer 003724. Mr. President, do I have your leave to quote from the document? Madame Yim Sovan, may I just remind you of what you told the co-investigating judges when you were interviewed by them? The question put to you was, did you see the Khmer Rouge mistreat or abuse anyone during the 6 months that you were there? You answered, in the village there was a security center, which was called Center 15. I do not recall where exactly it was located, whether or not it was in village number 1 or number 2, since my house was located next to the river. And I saw people being transported. Their hands were tied behind their backs. They were taken to the security center. You were then asked the following question. What happened to the people who were taken to the security center? You answered, and I quote, "These people were accused of being enemy elements and taken to the security center. They had no hope for survival. People who were taken there always disappeared." You were then asked, did you ever witness an execution of a prisoner during the 6 months in Potiban? You answered, no, never. I just saw people being taken to the security center. Madame, do you hereby confirm what you stated before the co-investigating judges?
Response. I saw that, but in village number 5, I'm not quite sure who the victim was. But my house was at the riverbank, and I saw people were tied up and taken away. I saw people being transported by boat from the other village. And the place called Monty 15, I just saw that Monty 15, but I never witnessed any execution because I passed by the office 15. I saw the office, but not witnessed any execution.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. You remained in the village for 6 months. And then you left. Can you please provide us the reasons why you had to leave the village?
At the time, they evicted us, and actually we wanted to ask them to stay behind, but they told us that we were not allowed. If we wanted to stay, we would be asked to stay in Office 15, Security Office 15. So we had to move in line with the party's direction. So our entire family decided to leave. And at that time, I was in the female unit, and I was told by by people around me, particularly the leader of my unit, that this was the second wave of evacuation from this place. And I told my team leader, my unit leader, that I would leave. Even if I were asked to stay, I would not stay. I would have to move on. And then at that time, they sent a boat to take us across the river to the other side of the river bank. And then we saw a truck over there, but they did not take us immediately when we reached the other side of the river bank. We had to wait for a few more days. And I met a friend of my father's who told us that we must not stay in that place. We had to move to Posat province because in Posat province there were plenty food over there. If we stayed here, we would die eventually. So at that time, we decided to leave for Posat province. So we got on the truck and we were driven past Saang, Tak Khmau, Wat Slang, and finally we reached the railway station, and we had to wait over there at the railway station.
Est-ce qu'on vous a donné des
Were you given any reasons for which you had to leave and why there was a second wave of evacuations that was discussed by your leader?
That I did not know the reason. They only told us that there would be the second wave of evacuation of the 17 April people, and I did not understand the motive of the order. They labeled us as the 17th April. Probably they could have considered us as the enemy of the Khmer Rouge soldiers. Actually, they did not only consider the soldiers of the former regime as the enemy of the Khmer Rouge, but they also considered the 17th April people as the enemies of them as well.
Est-ce que j'ai bien compris, madame?
Do I understand correctly, madame? Are you saying that only the April 17 people were forced to transfer?
Response: that is correct.
Pendant ce deuxième voyage,
And during the second journey, did you receive medication, care, water, provisions, food?
I stayed at Sampan Le Pagoda, and they gave us 3 kilograms of rice per family. We were given this rice when we got on the truck. And then at the railway station, we stayed outdoor waiting for the train to arrive. And while we were waiting, we were not given any water to drink. We had to drink from the pond. And then when we got on the train, we were given 1 loaf of bread, and that was it.
vous avez dit que votre petit frère était né.
You stated that your younger brother was born at the end of 1975 and that he was only about 3 months old when you left. Did he receive any special care? Or was any special care dispensed to mothers and particularly young children?
My mother took care of him, but my mother did not have enough breast milk to feed him because she was skinny and too exhausted at that time. Nobody took care of the baby and her, and she had to live her life all on her own at that time.
Est-ce que vous aviez la possibilité d'acheter?
Did you have the opportunity to buy sustenance, medication, or milk during either first or second journeys?
No, not at all. At that time, money was abolished. Following the 17th of April 1975, currency was abolished, so we could not buy anything.
Est-ce que vous pouviez échanger des choses?
Were you able to exchange goods?
No, we did not barter anything. With the second wave of evacuation of the 17th April 19, we did not exchange any goods. Some families had hidden something with them, so they could feed themselves along the way. But as for my family, we had nothing left with us. We were barehanded.
Madame, I wish now to discuss the second location where you lived up until the end of the Khmer Rouge regime, which is the following cooperative. I believe it's called Kabal Nukchukt, and please pardon my pronunciation. Now, in that cooperative, were your siblings placed within special units?
I was evicted and I stay in one cooperative in 9 commune, Posat province, in Kbal Chumpuk cooperative. When I stayed there for about 3 or 4 months, then they separated my siblings. My younger brother was separated and he was attached to a child mobile unit. And I myself was separated, but I did not join the special unit. And my father was also split from us, so he joined another unit.
Je vous remercie. Comment étaient les conditions de vie?
Thank you. And what were the living conditions like for the April 17 people who were transferred to that particular cooperative? What were the lodgings like, and how often were they fed?
In Kbal Chumpuk cooperative, they built small huts for the new people, and we were given a room, small room each. But my father told me that even if we were not given rights to it, so long as we live close to the river stream, then we could find something to eat. So life would not be as miserable as when we were living in Kathom district.
Thank you. I wish now to talk about your father and your sister. What happened to your father in that cooperative?
In that cooperative, it was in 1978. It was toward the end of 1978. But at that time, to my recollection, it was the time when we transplanted rice and seedlings. And at that time, one night, my father was asked to mine the rice field because they told him that there would be enemy penetrating. So they asked my father to wait and stay in one of the dining hall. And there was a cook by the name of Un who killed the cook unit at that time. So early in the morning, my father told me that Kung attacked his unit head, and then he had to send him to the hospital, cooperative hospital. And then another village head by the name of Red went to visit Kung at the hospital, and he asked why he had hit an enemy within his work, and he told the village head that we did not hide any enemies behind. And then they keep accusing him that he had hidden the enemies, and he threatened him of being taken away. So he asked and begged him, and everyone was accusing him of hiding the enemy. So one day I went along with my father to meet with them, and then my father was in a very sad and depressed mood, and it was the day when they arrested my father. At that time they did not tell my father to go to the rice field, and then later during the day I had my lunch, and then I returned back to meet my father. But then on the way I met two militiamen, and they were walking from somewhere, and then I was very horrified. I saw Mr. Wutti, who told me that my father had been tied to a bed, and then I was very horrified, and I knew that my father had been killed, and I burst into a tear. But then my villagers told me that I must not cry. If I cried, I would be accused of being traitor. And then I asked him, comrade, whether or not I could ask something. If you accuse me of being the enemy, rather, my Leung told me that my father had asked the militiamen to forgive his family members, including myself as well, even if he was killed. So they tied my fathers, and then they frog marched my father away with his hand tied to his back, and he was imprisoned at Office 07, and they accused my father of being an enemy. At that time, I was crying very hard. I could not do anything to help.
Madame, vous avez dit que votre
Madame, you stated that your father was led somewhere and then executed. How exactly were you able to know that he was executed?
They took my father to Banti Yun, where the security office 07 was located, and it was the prison center. And I had my sister, my brother's friends who were working over there. Actually, my brother did not see the scene of the execution, but another friend of my sister saw that at that night, according to her, my father was executed. There was an old man, a Chinese old man. He had a watch. Then the militiaman asked the watch, and then I was wondering why at that time corruption was also took place, and later on, I asked people time and again why they arrested and executed my father. They accused my fathers and others as the enemy, but why certain people were released and my father was executed? Then they told me that he was the gentleman, the Chinese man, was the former airport director in Siem Reap, and he had the middle-made watch, and he gave it to the militiaman. Then he was released.
Je vous remercie, Madame.
Thank you, Madame. Were you able to recover the corpse of your father and organize a proper burial funeral ceremony?
At 07 security office were strictly guarded, and nobody could approach this place without any permission or authority. So at that time, we could not imagine celebrating any religious ceremony to mourn the passing of our relatives. We could not do anything about it.
Je vous remercie, Madame.
Thank you, Madame. Can you please tell this court exactly what happened to your younger sister? And this will bring me to an end with my more difficult questions.
As for my younger sister, she was in the children unit attached to Security Office 07. It was both a security office and the child unit. And at that time, the children working over there were given only 2 ladle of gruels. They were not given enough food to eat. And they simply picked the rice that were not yet ripe, but because they were too hungry, they picked the rice from the rice corn, and they were accused of being enemy, and they were taken away. And he, as for my mother, she had the ring, and they wanted to ask for the ring from my mother, otherwise my sister would be taken away and killed. And that man who threatened to execute my sister was the former teachers of mine.
Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé après, Madame?
And what happened afterwards, Madame?
My mother refused to give the ring to them, so they escorted, they marched my sister to Security Office 07, and then she was transferred to Security Office 08, and then she disappeared from that time onwards. We never see her returned.
Madame, je vous remercie pour...
Madame, thank you very much for all of those answers. I would now hand the floor over to the co-prosecutors who may have supplementary questions. But just before concluding, Mr. President, I wish to inform Your Honors that Madame Yim So-van wishes to talk about her suffering at the end of the at the conclusion of the line of questions that will be put to her. And we have prepared a written document that she may refer to for her ease and comfort. Mr. President, do we have your authorization to proceed in such a manner? I believe that this was done during case 001.
Yes, you may proceed.
Je pense qu'elle en parlera peut-être à la fin des...
I believe the civil party wishes to make a statement at the conclusion of all of the questions to be put to her by all parties. Madame, I wish to thank you for all of the answers that you have provided to us today. Thank you very much.
The President, thank you. I now hand over to the prosecution. You may proceed, Mr. Prosecutor.
Mr. President, thank you. Madame Yim Savan, I'd like to take you, please, to your earlier statement to the investigating judges in this case. And the relevant page is the page that has already been quoted. Now, Madame Savan, you were talking about the time when you were at Potiban commune, and you stated that you remained in Potiban for 6 months, from May to November 1975. Is that correct, please?
Yes, that is correct.
You also said in the same statement that your family was given a hut to stay in, and that this hut was located near the river. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is adjacent to the river.
Did you know at that time of an island called Kokor?
Yes, Kokko was a village close to my hometown. Kokko was in the upper part of my home village. It was some 30 kilometers away from me. And then later on, I learned from others that Kokko was the execution site.
When you were living by the river, in the hut, you said that you saw people being transported by boat to the security centre. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I did see it. I did see they transport people by boat to the security centre.
How many times approximately did you see people being transported by boat in this fashion?
I saw it only once.
Can you give an estimate, please, as to how many people were on the boat that you saw?
There were about 5 to 6 people.
Were the 5 to 6 people you saw on the boat moving freely around the boat or not?
No, they were all tied, their hands were tied to the back. And at that time, I knew for myself that those people must have been accused of being the enemies. That's why their hands were tied to their back.
This period is from May to November of 1975. You've said in your evidence that, as far as you were concerned, the Khmer Rouge considered the 17th of April people to be enemy. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And that as far as you were concerned, former soldiers from the Lon Nol regime were also considered as enemy. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
At this time that you were making these observations of these people with their hands tied behind their backs, did you think there were any other classes or people of enemy apart from the 17th of April and the former Lon Nol soldiers?
I think that from 1975 to late 1976, those who were tied with their hand behind their backs were either the 17th April people or the Lon Nol soldiers, because they were considered enemies.
In relation to the people that you saw, you said in relation to the security centre, people who were taken there always disappeared. Is that correct?
Those who were taken to security office 15th disappeared. They never returned.
And so I have it correctly, that security office, number 15, was an office that you actually saw with your own eyes. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It was village 1 and 2 where we went to harvest crops over there. So we walked past these two villages back and forth when we were staying there before we were evicted to Posat province. The security center was located in either village 1 or 2, I do not recall.
You've spoken already about your father's connection with Security Centre 7, and I'm moving now on to the time that you were at the second cooperative, Kabal Chopok. Now, in relation to that security centre, and I'm referring to your OCIJ statement now, and it's page English ERN 00379315, Khmer 00373426, and Khmer 00373426. You said this about Security Centre 7, and I quote, "Those who were at Security Centre 7 were under close surveillance, but still allowed to work. They would be watched closely. And if they committed some other offences, then they would be sent to Security Centre 8. At Security Centre 8, the treatment was miserable for the prisoners. They were handcuffed, shackled, and severely tortured. Is that correct?
Respond, yes, that is correct. At Security Center 07, sometime the people who steal something to eat were arrested for re-education. If people get improved, they were released. If they could not do so, they were sent to Security Center 08. Security Center 07 was in a pagoda, and 07 was in a village.
I'm still referring to the same page of your OCIJ statement, and it's where you're talking about Security Centre 8. And the question was about 500 prisoners being killed at that centre. And your reply was, and I quote, "I saw people who were evacuated from the east zone of Svay Rieng province being tied in a line and taken to Security Centre 8 to be executed." Is that correct?
Respond, yes, that is correct. At that time, it was right before the liberation by the Vietnamese troop. The people were sent from Svay Rieng province to Can Dien Cooperative. One day I was doing the harvesting. I saw people from the eastern zone were tied up with both hands behind their backs and transported along the rice paddy. And I saw one of the old women. And how old are you, auntie? And she told me that she was very thirsty and she was from Svay Rieng. And two of the militiamen forced her to go as fast as she could. And I realized that those people were sent to Security Center number 8. And for those who were rather young, were tied up in a line and sent to Security number 8. I saw it with my own eyes. The President, Mr. Prosecutor, how much time do you need to put question to the civil party?
Like another 3 minutes, please, Mr. President.
The President, the International Defense Council for Mr. Nuon Chea, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sorry to interrupt the examination. I just wanted to clarify whether or not the prosecution is going to remain with this area, because as far as I can tell from this witness's statement to the OCIJ and her testimony today, it seems to me that we're in areas of the past of 1978. I think we've moved into 1978. And if that is in fact the case, it would be my submission that whatever happened at any crime base in 1978 is outside the temporal jurisdiction, the temporal areas that this court is meant to be covering. In terms of fact-based, crime-based witnesses, we are meant to be focusing on, as I said this morning, population movement 1 and 2, and the new security center that has recently been added by the Chamber. So if we're into 78, that's our position. This is irrelevant for this trial. Thank you.
The President, thank you for your remarks to the trial chamber. And Mr. Prosecutor, Could you please try to stay within the temporal framework regarding this trial segment regarding forced transfer number 1 and number 2, and you seem to move beyond that, especially the facts in Posat. It's related only to Tulpo Chire. Mr. Prosecutor, you may proceed.
Can I say I understand the objection and indeed the ruling that you've given, Mr. President. The purpose for covering that briefly and only in the terms of the witness's statement was given the evidence that she had told the court about her father and that security centre, but I'm going to move on. Madam Yin Savan, the commune that you're in at this time, Kabal Chepok, did you hear in the time that you were at this commune of a place called Tulpoche?
Response. The commune of Tulpoche, I used to walk and pass by the place. It was the place for execution of the Luno soldier. I heard from the villagers that this was the place that they killed the Luno soldier. I was sitting for a while and to collect the thatched, and when I heard that, I have to move out from the site. Yes, it is correct.
When you were receiving this information about Tulpoche, were you actually in that village when you were being told that information?
Response. When I was there to collect the thatched in late 1976, early 1977, I walked from Kabal Chepok village, and then I went Koku, and then Po village, Pumpo village. At the beginning, I did not remember, but I asked the villager in Posat, and they told me that it was the execution site. And in late 1976 and early 1977, we would walk by the area to collect the thatched to prepare for the roof, the hut.
I just want to be clear, when you were collecting the thatch, was Tulpoche, as far as you were aware, an existing execution site at that time?
Response. It was the execution site for Luno soldier, because I heard from the Khmer soldier that any soldier of the former regime were needed to work for the new regime, and those victims followed their instruction, and they were loaded into a truck and sent to that area for execution. The killing was happening during April of 1975. It took about a half month, as I heard from the villagers there.
So when you were at that location, did you see any signs of the execution taking place? What I mean is burial sites, grave sites, or any other indications that the executions had taken place?
Response. I didn't see any scar, but the hill that I saw, it was cover up. It's the earth cover up in a place. So I was traveling in a long distance, and I sit in a place, and I met the people from Kabal Chirpuk Cooperative, and they told me that their relatives were killed there. That's all I heard from them.
And when we talk about the execution site, was this open land, or were there any buildings of any description there?
Respond. It was an open field. It was close to Tunle Sap. It was a big field of land next to the inundated forest.
And in the discussions that you had with other people, were you given any indication as to the numbers of Lon Nol soldiers who had been executed there?
Response. They did not indicate any number. They just told me that they saw a truckload of people were sent there. No exact figure was given to me. And they said it's not only Lon Nol soldier. They will include the civil servants from the former regime were all gathered and sent to that site for execution.
Madam Yin Sevan, thank you very much for asking my questions. And Mr. President, I apologise if I went over the 3 minutes indicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prosecutor. I saw you are on your feet, Counsel. Do you have anything to address to the court?
I do, Your Honor. I have two very brief points. The first one, perhaps in the interest of the civil party, we have no questions from the Nuencia defense team. I'm informed from my colleagues on this side of the stage that they have no questions. They will confirm that if necessary. Perhaps the civil party could be sent home for the weekend. I don't mean to tell you what to do, Mr. President, but
The President, thank you for your information. Do you have anything to address to the court?
well, as a matter of fact, I do. It was that point I was trying to raise earlier. I'm happy to do that on Monday morning. It is 4:15. I believe Judge Cartwright's asking you what is the subject matter. The subject matter is the issue of your initial comments, the introductory comments that you made to this civil party. And I raised the issue because I assume you're going to be making similar comments to other witnesses. Now, You will correct me if I'm wrong. You will correct me if I'm wrong. What I have in my notes is that you referred to crimes committed by alleged accused. So the problem I have with that is, and this is not a personal attack, Mr. President, Judge Cartwright is motioning.
The President, could you please give the subject you would like to address to the court? So what is your topic that you want to, you wish to address to the court? So I keep reminding you on that, on this matter. Is it a problem that you don't understand, or you would like the trial chamber to give you another clarification, or what kind of topics you would like to talk? So to avoid any statement from you that may insult the proceedings or criticize the President for not being reasonable to stop you.
Mr. President, first of all, I do not intend to insult the proceedings. I apologize if it is now presumed that everything I say is insulting. I have a very brief application with respect to something that you said just before this civil party began her testimony. And again, let me just try and be very clear. I'll speak very slowly. I heard you say, when you were explaining to this civil party what was going to be taking place today, you said, and this, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I wrote down in my notes, crimes committed by alleged accused. So the issue, the problem that I have with that is the lack of a qualification in front of the word crimes. You should have said, in my view, and maybe you did, and then you will correct me if I'm wrong, you should have said alleged crimes committed by alleged accused. And just let me explain this to the public. We do not take for granted that base crimes, crimes at the base level, were committed. That is still an open question. That is still an open question. Whether crimes were committed is an open question, and whether anyone is responsible for those crimes is an open question. So that was my complaint. And it's, quite frankly, it's linked to something else, and I'm referring very quickly to document E163/5, and that is a notification of decision on co-prosecutor's request to include additional crime sites within the scope of the trial in case 002/01. And this is with respect to the addition of the killings at Tuol Po Tre. Again, killings not qualified in any sense. Killings that occurred between 1976 and 1977, and killings at Tuol Po Tre, which immediately followed. Now, this may seem like a minor point. And I'm not trying to be, how shall I say it? I'm not trying to be annoying in any way. I'm trying to make it very clear for everyone's sake, for the public's sake, that we need to speak in the language of allegations, accusations, and that goes for base crimes just as it does for levels of responsibility with respect to these individuals who are sitting behind me. There's only one here right now, but I hope I'm making my point, and I hope I'm not being offensive in any way. I think it's very important that a judicial chamber, a chamber composed of judges, really focuses on the proper language, so as not to give the impression to the public that any of you up there have already decided that crimes were committed, killings occurred. Those are open questions. I think I've made my point. I hope I have. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
The President, thank you. National Defense Counsel for Mr. Evidentiary. You may proceed. Your Honors, we support the request by Andrew Evidentiary. Until now, after the questioning by the civil party lawyer and the prosecutor, we don't have any question to put to the civil party. We reserve our right to ask question if we found that the judges asked question that related to our case, and then we can decide to ask question. The President, I need to hear from the Defense Counsel for Mr. Kilsampon. Do you have any remark to make to the court now? Defense Counsel for Mr. Kilsampon. Thank you, Mr. President. We don't have any question to ask the civil party. The President. Defense Counsel, you may proceed.
Je voudrais juste faire une remarque. Je pense que, quel que soit le fondement des réflexions de mon confrère, je pense que le moment n'est vraiment pas approprié de poser ce genre de questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a remark to make. Whatever may be the merits of my learned friend's comments, this is not a time to make remarks. The witness is still here with us, and her testimony is very difficult, very important. I think these discussions could take place on another occasion, particularly since we are beyond the time. It is rather late in the day. There will be time for us to reflect on these matters. And in that case, the witness should come on Monday rather than have her present her final statement at this point in time.
The President, thank you. To indicate well about your rights as civil party, you can express your sufferings, miserable suffering that she suffered, moral damage, material damage, as a direct suffering from the crimes occurred, and the suffering remain until today, that she applied to act as civil party in relation to the crimes charged Mr. Evidentiary, Kilsampon and Nunchie, and the crimes occurred during the decade period in the case file 002/1, especially in the fact of transfer phase 1 and phase 2 from April 1975 until 1977. You have to express your suffering within this period of time. The President, this is for this civil party we have today. And as for other civil parties, we include the killing size Tuolpo Chre. So the civil party who have suffering or damages with Tuolpo Chre, they can express suffering in relation to that killing site, especially to the loss of their relatives at the killing site of Tuolpo Chre. And in it is now appropriate to adjourn the hearing for today, and the hearing will resume on Monday, the 22nd of October from 9 o'clock. And we will hear civil party TCCP 25. And Madam Yum Savan, your hearing regarding your testimony is concluded, but the court allow you to express your suffering, but the time today is not allowed, and the trial chamber invite you to come again on Monday so that you can express your suffering at the beginning of the hearing on Monday. The court officer, please cooperate with the vessel to take the civil party to her residence and bring her back on Monday the 22nd before 9 a.m. in the morning. And the security guard is instructed to bring the accused back to the detention facility and bring them back on Monday of next week before 9 o'clock. The court is adjourned.